Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something literally all of us have in common. We're going to explore the incredible mechanics of reproduction. We'll be starting all the way down at the cellular level with simple organisms, building up to the incredibly complex biology of humans, and finally, looking at how these cold, hard biological facts directly intersect with our societal realities. It's a fascinating journey from the micro right up to the macro. But, it all begins with one fundamental question. How exactly does life create more life? It's the one process that ensures the continuity of every single species on the planet, but the mechanisms behind it are as wildly diverse as they are incredibly precise. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the basics of reproduction, human anatomy and fertilization, the journey to birth, the diversity in animal reproduction, and lastly, where biology meets societal realities. All right, Section 1, the basics of reproduction. We really have to start at the absolute foundational level here. So the biological world essentially splits reproduction into two main camps. On one side, you've got asexual reproduction. This is the simplest route. It involves just a single parent, and there's absolutely no production or fusion of sex cells, which biologists call gametes. On the flip side, we have sexual reproduction. This is the method used by most plants, animals, and of course, us humans. This requires two parents and happens through the fusion of those gametes to create a brand new organism. In nature, this asexual process is remarkably efficient. Take binary fission in an amoeba, for example. The single cell literally just divides its nucleus, its cytoplasm splits, and boom, two entirely new daughter cells. Or consider budding in a hydra, where a tiny bud actually grows on the parent, detaches, and becomes a completely new individual. One parent, no gametes, just perfect replication. Moving on to Section 2, human anatomy and fertilization. Let's shift our focus from simple organisms directly to the complex biological systems of human beings. To really grasp human reproduction, we have to map out the anatomy. In males, the absolutely crucial components are the testicles, which are housed within the scrotum. Triggered by puberty, the pituitary gland kicks them into gear to produce testosterone and literally millions of sperm cells. Those are the male gametes. These sperm then travel through a narrow tube called the sperm duct, where they mix with fluids to form semen, eventually exiting the body through the urethra inside the penis. Now, in the female reproductive system, the main players are the ovaries. And here's a wild number for you. While a female is born with over 1 million eggs, or ova, only about 300 of those will mature during her reproductive years. Fueled by estrogen, an ovary releases an egg into the fallopian tube, also known as the oviduct. If fertilization is going to happen, it happens right here in the oviduct, before that resulting zygote travels down into the uterus, or womb, where it'll mature and grow. These two systems interact in a highly precise 5-step sequence. First up, ovulation releases an ovum into the oviduct. Next, during intercourse, sperm travel up through the cervix and uterus and into the oviduct. Step 4 is the big one. Out of millions, a single sperm fusing with the ovum in the oviduct. That is the exact moment of fertilization. Finally, step 5, the newly fertilized ovum travels down and implants itself securely into the wall of the uterus to develop into an embryo. Section 3, the journey to birth. Let's look at what happens immediately after fertilization. How does one single cell become a fully formed baby? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that at the exact moment of fertilization, the biological sex of the baby is already decided by these thread-like structures called chromosomes. While every human cell has 23 pairs of chromosomes, our gametes, so the sperm and the ovum, they only carry one set each. Specifically, they each carry one sex chromosome. Let's break down how the math works here. A female cell has an XX pair of sex chromosomes, which means an ovum can only ever carry an X chromosome. A male cell has an XY pair, meaning a sperm can carry either an X or a Y. So the sex of the baby is entirely dependent on the sperm. If an X-carrying sperm fertilizes the X egg, the pairing is XX, and it'll be a girl. If a Y-carrying sperm gets there first, it's XY, and it'll be a boy. This biological fact directly refutes a really persistent societal myth. While the mother is frequently blamed for a child's sex, biologically speaking, she only contributes an X chromosome. It is entirely the father's sperm that determines the baby's sex, no exceptions. Once that genetic code is locked in, the clock starts on a roughly 40-week gestation period. On day 1, it's just a single-celled zygote. By the 4th week, it's divided into a ball of cells called an embryo and implants into the uterus to get nutrition from the mother's blood. As major internal organs and body parts develop, it officially becomes known as a fetus. And after 40 weeks, when it's fully developed, the uterus contracts to push the baby out. Biologists term this parturition, but we just call it birth. Section 4, Diversity in Animal Reproduction. Let's zoom out from humans for a bit to explore the wonderfully diverse reproductive strategies found across the broader animal kingdom.
So, the crucial point is that not all animals handle birth the same way we do. Animals are largely classified into 2 categories based on how they produce offspring. Viviparous animals, think dogs, cows, and us humans, give birth to live young. Conversely, oviparous animals, like hens, frogs, and snakes, they lay eggs that hatch later.
And in some oviparous animals, the young look absolutely nothing like their parents when they hatch. This leads to a wild process called metamorphosis, a series of drastic physical changes after birth. A butterfly is a perfect example of this. It starts as an egg, hatches as a crawling caterpillar, transforms into a pupa or chrysalis, and finally emerges as a flying adult butterfly. It is a complete structural transformation. Section 5, Biology meets Societal Realities. Now, understanding the mechanics of reproduction isn't just about science. It has profound impacts on actual human lives. As the source text highlights, biological misconceptions directly intersect with societal practices. In some societies, a perceived financial burden leads to this intense preference for male children. This bias, coupled with the misuse of ultrasonography, has unfortunately led to the illegal practice of female foeticide. The sources also note that this dynamic drives early marriages, which heavily impacts young girls' access to both health and education. Which leads us to a staggering global statistic. Every single year, approximately 16 million babies are delivered by young women between the ages of 15 and 19. 16 million. Based on the intense anatomical demands we mapped out earlier, an adolescent body is simply not fully prepared for that gestation process. The source data shows adolescent pregnancy poses severe physical and mental health risks to both mother and child, and it creates a ripple effect that halts educational opportunities and perpetuates cycles of inequality. So, it brings us to a pretty powerful realization. The societal blame placed on mothers for a child's gender is biologically false. The physical readiness of a teenager for motherhood is biologically absent. So I want to leave you with this question to think about. How can increasing our awareness of basic biology actually help us eradicate these gender myths and societal inequalities? Because understanding the science of life isn't just a textbook exercise. It might just be the key to building a fairer world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.